morning, everyone. We are now up to Perek Ches, Mishna Zayin. Now we've had a halacha previously that says that Shemitah produce is to be eaten, and eaten means not to be destroyed. So the Mishnah reads like this: Ein mevashlin yarek shel shviyas b'shemen shel truma. One may not cook a vegetable of Shemitah produce vegetable, in oil of truma. Truma is what is separated. We produce oil, supposed to from new olives. You're supposed to separate an amount of it to give to the Kohen. It has a certain special sanctity. Only the Kohen can eat it. If it were to become tamei, it has to be burned. So in this case, you have a Kohen. He's got this vegetable of Shemitah. He wants to cook it in oil of truma. Now, if he does so, the vegetable is going to absorb oil of truma, and it's going to have to be treated like truma. Only a Kohen can eat it, and if it were to become tamei, become impure, you'd have to destroy it. So the Mishnah says that would mean that if, let's say, this vegetable that was cooked in this truma oil, if, let's say, a source of tuma touched it, you'd have to burn it because the truma that's in it became tamei, became impure. So you're going to have to burn it. If you're going to burn it, that means you're now destroying Shemitah produce. So therefore, the Mishnah says, the first opinion of the Mishnah says, one may not cook a vegetable of Shemitah in oil of truma, so as not to bring it to a state of invalidation, a state of destruction. As we said, if you cook the vegetable in the truma oil gets absorbed into the vegetable. The vegetable has to be treated like truma. The source of tum were to touch the vegetable, it would mean that the truma in the vegetable became tamei, and now you have to burn the whole vegetable. That means you're ruining the Shemitah produce. So the Tanna Kama holds that you can't allow that even to happen. It's not like, well, when you first cook the vegetable in the oil, there's nothing wrong. That's true. The point is, though, that we don't want it to come to a situation where you would possibly have to destroy the Shemitah produce, which you're not allowed to do. And therefore, we say you may not cook the Shemitah vegetable in the truma oil so as not to come to this possibility of having to destroy the Shemitah vegetable, because the truma oil inside became tamei because the vegetable came into contact with a source of tuma. Shimon Mater. Shimon is of the opinion that it's permissible. Shimon basically says, and he holds this in other areas of halacha, that there is no prohibition of making sure that something doesn't come to a state of being invalidated. It's relevant in other places by karbanos, by sacrifices. Here, the relevance is that Shimon says there is no prohibition of saying don't cook it in the oil of truma because it could come to invalidation. And right now, it's not invalid. You can go ahead and use it. But you don't have to be concerned that it may come, that we don't say don't, to begin with, put it in a state where there's a possibility of this invalidation coming about. That's the argument between the Tanna Kama and Reb Shimon, and the halacha does not follow Reb Shimon, which means that you would not be permitted to cook the Shemitah vegetable in the truma oil so as not to create the possibility of having to destroy this Shemitah produce if it were to come into contact with a source of impurity, which would cause it to have to be destroyed because of the truma that's absorbed inside. Now the Mishnah goes into a different halacha altogether. The very last object takes on the sanctity of Shemitah, but the fruit itself is forbidden. Now that means like this. The halacha is, we have learned that if you exchange money for Shemitah produce, then the money takes on the Shemitah produce sanctity. The same thing, if you were to go ahead and exchange one food that's not a food that's not Shemitah food for Shemitah produce. So let's say you went ahead, you had Shemitah produce, you exchanged it for a piece of meat. Meat's not Shemitah, but now it was exchanged for Shemitah produce. It takes on the sanctity of Shemitah. If you then go ahead and you exchange that piece of meat for a piece of fish, that piece of fish now takes on the Shemitah produce. It's Shemitah status. You got to treat it like Shemitah. The point of the Mishnah is that when you go through this process of exchanging, the very last item of exchange will have the sanctity of Shemitah, while the previous ones won't. That means when you exchange the meat for the fish now takes on the Shemitah sanctity, and it goes off of the meat. When you whole idea of the exchange taking off the sanctity of Shemitah from one and goes on to the thing you exchanged it for, that only applies to what was exchanged. The original Shemitah produce, although again, when you exchange it for something, that thing takes on the sanctity, gets Shemitah sanctity, it doesn't come off of the original Shemitah produce. So that's what it means. The very last thing, the very last item of the exchange line, that takes on the sanctity of Shemitah. It's only that one, not the previous ones, not the previous items of exchange. But the fruit itself, the original Shemitah produce itself, remains aser. So although its sanctity gets transferred to the thing it's exchanged for, the sanctity never goes off of it, which is different than, let's say, by something that was sanctified to the Beis HaMikdash, that you can redeem it. That there, even the very first thing that you sanctified, some object that you sanctified, making it the property of the Beis HaMikdash. And now we say if you exchange it for something else, the sanctity will go off that object and go onto the new object. That would even apply to the original object that was sanctified. Again, we're not talking about an animal sacrifice. We're talking about an object that was sanctified to the Beis HaMikdash. Okay, that's the conclusion of the Mishnah. And now we'll do the Sefer HaMitzvot. So today's mitzvah continues again with the laws of Avodah Zarah. And yesterday, we learned how worshiping an idol, if you do it in the form that you do service to Hashem in the Beis HaMikdash, then where we're talking about bowing down, which is a firm form of serving Hashem, or any of the other processes of a korban, a sacrifice that are done. If you do that to an idol, even if that's not the way the idol is typically worshipped, you've transgressed. You have considered you've committed the sin of Avodah Zarah. And now the Mishnah the next mitzvah says, mitzvah slice, we have a prohibition, not to worship idols, and that which is the way that it's worshipped. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, you shall not worship them. Now the novel idea here is the following. Even if, let's say, the act is a disgraceful act, if you're going pa'ar atzmei lepa'ar, believe it or not, there was a idol called pa'ar, and the way you worshipped it was by going to the bathroom in front of it. Okay, so clearly that's an act of disgrace, but that's the way it was worshipped. You know how to do that. There was an idol called Markulis. You know how you worshipped it? You threw stones at it. So again, these are essentially not acts of respect. But since the way of worshiping would do these disrespectful acts, hareza b'skila, if you do it and you're warned not to do it and you still do it, then you'd be liable to the capital punishment of stoning. And if there was no warning, but did intentionally, chayiv kares, then you would be chayiv kares, being cut off, having your neshama cut off. Kares, there's a lot of different explanations to what kares means. It can mean premature death. It means essentially that your neshama is cut off from its source in Shemayim. But we'll just, that's kares, being cut off. And if you do it unintentionally, chayav chatas, you'd be liable as an offering. But let's say markulis, which you throw stones at, instead of throwing stones, you go to the bathroom in front of it, pater, you're exempt. Because that's not the way it's worshipped, and it's shaming it, it's disgracing it. Now the next halacha, you don't worship it, you give it a hug, you give it a kiss. Basically, you're showing honor to it. Or let's say you're sweeping dust from in front of it, or you're putting down sand in front of it, or any other form of showing honor. Or you're to do it to any type of Avodah Zarah, even to the ones that you're supposed to disgrace. If you do an act of honor to it, you have transgressed a prohibition. This prohibition of not to serve them. But when you do this, when you do any of these forms of showing honor, although an act is being done, there is no lashes for it. They shulav shebeklalis, because it's a prohibition shebeklalis that is inclusive. So what that means is that this prohibition of loisa of them, do not worship them, includes more than one form of act. It includes the essential meaning of loisa of them, don't worship them, which is an actual form of worship, and that does carry punishment. But now this other form of transgressing, which is showing honor, being that is so to speak an included part of this prohibition. The prohibition regarding that aspect of it is called the lav shebeklalis, a inclusive prohibition. It's including more than one thing, and that included thing will not get lashes. Next halacha. Let's say you have these images that are fountains of water in front of Avodah Zarah. So you have this image, and they have some kind of a sculpture in front of the Avodah Zarah, and there's water that comes out of the sculpture. It's like something that you show honor to the Avodah Zarah with. You're thirsty, so you want to go over to where the water comes out, take a drink. You can't do that. Because it appears like you're kissing the Avodah Zarah. Now, although my understanding is, this is as the wording is, these are tsure, sculptures that give off water in front of the Avodah Zarah. So I'm not sure if this means it's a sculpture in front of the Avodah Zarah, or it means the sculpture of the Avodah Zarah, but there's water that comes out in front of it. Not sure what it means. The point is that if you put your mouth on it, it appears like you're kissing it. So if it was the actual Avodah Zarah itself, it would make a lot of sense to say that that's showing honor to Avodah Zarah. If the translation means a sculpture in front of Avodah Zarah, would that also mean when you take the water, it looks like you're kissing it, looks like you're kissing the Avodah Zarah? I'm not sure, because I'm not really sure what the exact case here is. It says here in the English, if there are faucets of water in sculptured images before some idolatry, it sounds like the image is an image that's in front of the idolatry, which is there to show honor. If you were to be kissing it, that would also be considered kissing the idol, showing honor to the idol. And therefore, if you put your mouth to the water coming out of it to drink, and it appears like that, it appears like you're kissing it, you're not allowed to do it. This applies in all places, at all times, both by men and by women. Have a great day.